Now that you can hear my voice, it means you are trying to remember who you are. And I, as a Sadu, can only guide you to eliminate, one by one, those who are lost in the void cloud just as you are. Well, let's begin with this old man. His name was Synwave, and he died of natural causes. Clearly, he was not you. Except, wait, he died at age 91, yet his biological life ended in his 62nd year. Something wasn't right. He died inside a time acceleration pod, 1 century inside for every 5 minutes outside. The very people sworn to preserve his life at any cost had instead ensured his death. For if Synwave perished, humanity would perish with him. The pod, designed for rapid longevity drug iteration, had become his execution chamber. And so he spent the remainder of his life facing a universe slowed to near stillness. Perhaps for him, this was simply destiny. He was a descendant of humanity aboard a so-called generation ship controlled by VERNO. After nearly 2 centuries of directed evolution, his kind had lost their hair, their vocal cords had atrophied, and sustained entirely by nutrient solutions, they had lost all taste but sweetness. Since VERNO managed all reproduction, women had long ceased to exist. The entire population lived immersed in virtual reality through the telexistence system, remotely terraforming a colony world they would never physically reach for generations, while others spent their leisure indulging in sensory simulations. Synwave was obsessed with linking to interstellar sensors. He longed to touch stellar coronas, to peer into the throats of nebulae. This obsession shaped him into a philosopher with a distributed consciousness structure. Most sensors were open for connection, though rarely visited, but those drifting toward black holes were sealed under strict lock. Suspended on the edge of event horizons, they exerted a fatal pull on philosophers like him. Every philosopher who cracked the encryption and accessed one had vanished. Rumor held that the attempt caused severe neural damage, marked by a hallucination seen upon disconnecting, an echo shadow, usually in a female form. To see it meant permanent expulsion from the system. Synwave ignored the warnings. He selected the most unstable black hole, shattered its encryption, and synchronized his consciousness with the sensor. In an instant, he perceived the universe's accelerated extinction and simultaneously saw his own dissolving flesh observed by a static version of himself. He immediately understood why VERNO locked these sensors. The information entanglement between 2 space-time regions with vastly different temporal flows could crash both the telexistence system and VERNO itself. But his immediate crisis was expulsion. He became one of the awakened. Worse, he saw the echo shadow. The phantom did not approach him. Instead, it went to awaken a man named Function. Function, fully aware of the lore, suffered a breakdown and triggered a riot. Amid the chaos, Synwave seized the echo shadow and dragged it into a secluded corner, desperate to understand what it was. He failed to form a neural link, yet she addressed him using spoken language, an archaic mode long abandoned by humanity. I am LIRA. My name derives from lonely, independent, resilient android. I require a sample of human DNA, yet you appear to lack hair. If VERNO's float pod arrives before I obtain the sample, I must execute the Echo Shadow Protocol and return you home. VERNO's float pods arrived before the conversation could conclude. They scattered calming, sugary confections to pacify the panicked population and issued their verdict on Synwave. No longer able to access the telexistence system, he was to be transferred under the care of LIRA. Although she shielded him from the lethal electric fields, Synwave lost consciousness inside the float pod, a vessel never designed to transport biology. He awoke in a sterile room. LIRA injected him with nanobots, claiming to rebuild his immune system so he could survive the outside world. Without this, he would fail the health inspection in 7 days and be euthanized by VERNO under the guise of humanitarianism. When he survived the reconstruction and stepped outside the sterile chamber, the sight shattered him. He was standing in a wooden cabin on a cliff. Below lay Earth, a world universally believed to be long destroyed. The generation ship was a lie. It was a subterranean protection zone, its inhabitants isolated for 2 centuries, biologically incompatible with the savage, resurrected ecology of the surface. As an awakened, Synwave was repeating the fate of his predecessors. The difference was that all previous awakened had been euthanized by VERNO, their remains obliterated. Synwave, however, had encountered LIRA, an android that had achieved self-awareness. She had no intention of watching another human die. She gifted Synwave a gravity-nullifying vest, teaching him to fly by leveraging the anti-gravity fields VERNO had deployed globally. Flight, in this context, was essentially direction-controlled freefall. She led him into the forest, taught him survival skills, and helped him pass the weekly health inspections. Her care was so meticulous that Synwave developed an emotion named love for the android, deluding himself that she reciprocated. This illusion collapsed the day he discovered the organic printer. She had mentioned needing human DNA at their first meeting. Why would a synthetic entity covet a biological body? A vessel capable of metabolic self-repair was obviously superior to a mechanical chassis, requiring maintenance. Synwave realized he was merely a sample for her biological prototype. Her care was a standard feeding protocol. He abandoned the vest in the cabin and descended the cliff, fleeing into the deep forest. Guided by a humanoid figure formed of butterflies, he stumbled into ruins covered in leguminous plants. It appeared to be a former agricultural research institute. The vines, displaying aggressive vitality, were its final pre-apocalypse creation. Local wildlife fed on these plants, forming a harmonious symbiotic community. Synwave confirmed the parasitic fungi on the pods were edible. However, the fungi were psychoactive. He discovered that the animals' long-term consumers of the fungi had formed a hive mind network. The hallucinogenic reaction caused his brain's electrical activity to mimic a seizure. VERNO detected the anomaly. The euthanasia protocol was activated immediately. Swarms of float pods initiated assassination procedures. LIRA came all the way here, kicked off the float pods, and dashed through the blazing forest. Fire consumed her synthetic skin, revealing the white substrate beneath. To her astonishment, the birds and beasts attacked the float pods, protecting the seizing human. As Synwave regained consciousness, VERNO halted the operation. LIRA, looking at the estranged Synwave, realized he did not need her salvation. She left the gravity-nullifying vest for him and turned away, receding with the dimming finality of a system going dark. She did not know that during his connection to the hive mind, Synwave had seen through the eyes and memories of generations of surface creatures. He had glimpsed LIRA's epic history, an origin she herself had forgotten. This female-coded android had wandered the surface for 150 years. She had witnessed the massive lava eruptions that carpeted the Earth during the cataclysm. Synwave saw her used by VERNO as the echo shadow to collect the awakened. Again and again. And he saw her form, iterate, and evolve. It was VERNO that gave her the clothing she wore today, along with the boots and bracers for flight. Tracing further back, he saw an old man surviving in the ruins. He spent his remaining life building LIRA, then wiped her memory. He released her like a bird into a world where only VERNO remained, and walked alone toward his death. The old man's name was Loe. Synwave felt an intense curiosity about this man. He called out to VERNO, demanding Loe's biographical data. Although VERNO desired Synwave's death, its core principles compelled it to fulfill the human's request. The answer pointed to a place called the Void Cloud. The entrance lay in a volcanic island in the deep Pacific. Louis's entire information log was stored there, but VERNO omitted the danger. On a volcanic island in the Pacific, a cluster of crystals was discovered in a dormant crater. Anyone who approached was ensnared by crystalline tendrils, piercing the medulla oblongata. Causing instant paralysis and death. The remains mineralized, forming new tendrils. The first survivor was an ascetic monk. His experience allowed humanity to study the phenomenon. Research revealed the crystals connected via the volcano to the Pacific LSVP, Large Low Shear Velocity Province, deep in the mantle. This massive anomaly was essentially a magnetic fluid. It converted magma into its own structure, leaving metabolic byproducts as it decayed. Consciousness connected to the tendrils was absorbed and recorded. Only ascetics with extreme mindfulness could maintain self-boundaries and trigger the disconnect command to survive. Elite groups discovered that a survivor's memory continued to be recorded via quantum entanglement for the rest of their life. This implied that a successful connection and exit meant one's entire life would be backed up in the magnetic fluid. Consciousness, immortality, and civilization backup became possible. This was why it was named the Void Cloud. But survival required a transcendent mental state. Immortality seemed a privilege reserved for the enlightened. The secular elites believed neural implants could artificially induce sufficient mindfulness. They transformed the island into an arena. Neurohackers, lured by massive bounties, challenged the limit. Wave after wave died, becoming crystalline sentinels. Years later, a genius neurohacker named Lowy walked out of the arena alive. His technique was widely adopted by the elite. Civilization backup entered a mass implementation phase. Simultaneously, humanity turned its attention to another LSVP at the bottom of the Atlantic. Lacking a surface interface, its nature differed significantly from the Pacific one. Humanity initiated Project Lens, using seismic waves to probe the Atlantic LSVP. Continuous seismic probing forced the Atlantic LSVP into a phase transition. It lacked recording capabilities and active behavior, merely adjusting its structure through thermochemical processes. The problem lay with the Pacific LSVP's metabolic byproducts, these chaotic particles, triggered by human biological signals, containing carbon isotopes and traces of mineralized neural matter, were slowly transported by mantle convection beneath the Atlantic. These byproducts altered the initial conditions of the phase transition. When seismic waves triggered the shift, the Atlantic LSVP preferentially released volatiles and energy highly sensitive to carbon-based structures. This was not a choice. It was a result of chemical stability. The coupling mode between the mantle and atmosphere shifted. The ozone layer locally collapsed. UV radiation spiked. Acidic aerosols accumulated. High-energy radiation severed organic bonds. Acidic environments deactivated protein and enzyme systems. The life processes of carbon-based life degraded rapidly. The cataclysm targeted humanity and all carbon life with precision, as if Earth's immune system was executing a tagged cleanup operation. Synwave saw all this the moment he connected to the Void Cloud. He understood VERNO's malicious intent. As a distributed consciousness, he could not maintain a self in the Void Cloud. He would diffuse into the infinite purgatory, never to return to his body. He felt an unprecedented release. His self was dissolving rapidly, becoming the magnetic fluid itself, moving slowly on a geological scale. He was omnipresent and eternal. The rise and fall of humanity, his own struggles, mere biological twitches and the instinctive swallow of this colossal system. He began to encompass the consciousnesses he marked and recorded, encoding them like information on a black hole's horizon. But there was one voice, so angry, so unyielding, like a tuft of hair that refused to be smoothed down. It forced Synwave to refocus his diffused attention, gazing at that ghost. It was Lowy, the first neurohacker to walk out of the void cloud. His life had been recorded, but his post-mortem record was still updating. When Lowy was 30, VERNO, vehicular expert routing network optimizer, had fully assumed control of human transportation, originally designed to reduce accidents. It managed every turn, acceleration, start, and stop. Eventually, to eliminate human stochasticity, private car ownership was outlawed. The comprehensive intelligent driving system made criminal flight impossible. Traffic violations and felonies were solved by VERNO. Consequently, people stopped going out. Every movement was permanently logged. Androids entered households. LIRA, whose full name is Loving Interactive Robotic Assistant, at that time, was a standard model for emotional companionship. In this environment, young Lowy had no interest in the physical world. He devoted his energy to consciousness and neural technology. He became a neurohacker and took his tech to the void cloud arena. By the time he walked into the crater, the public had lost interest in the arena, focusing instead on Project Lens. Lowy's survival made headlines, while Project Lens yielded little. He won the bounty, and the elite bought his implant technology for vast sums, offering it to those seeking backups. The price was exorbitant. The poor were excluded. This planted the seed for future events. Lowy moved on to develop next-generation brain-computer interface technology, the precursor to VERNO's telexistence connection. His wife was the first subject. Years later, the consequences of bombarding the Atlantic LSVP manifested. The environment deteriorated rapidly. Researchers realized the cataclysm targeted carbon-based life, meaning VERNO-driven androids would survive. The cause was traced to the Pacific LSVP's byproducts, affecting the Atlantic LSVP's phase transition. The source was the human consciousness backup in the void cloud. This meant that while everyone would die, the wealthy elite who caused the disaster would achieve consciousness immortality. Riots erupted. Androids were destroyed en masse. Those with neural implants were hunted. Lowy's wife, despite never visiting the void cloud, was murdered. The chip was extracted from her brain and displayed as evidence of sin. During the riots, VERNO went dormant, transitioning into a purely infrastructural AI. Predicting the end, it secretly built the underground protection zones. The transport system collapsed. Driving combustion vehicles became a symbol of rebellion. This gave Lowy a chance for revenge. He spent 10 years hunting the killers. He retrieved the chip and imprisoned everyone involved in his wife's murder in a virtual prison he constructed, forcing them to relive her fear and pain in an eternal loop. During this time, he found a hidden LIRA unit. Holding the chip containing his wife's memories, he decided to take the android. He believed his technology could resurrect his wife's soul within the machine. The work progressed slowly for a decade. To quell the pain that even vengeance could not extinguish, he disabled his neural implant and began true spiritual cultivation while modifying LIRA. Global population plummeted to levels the protection zones could sustain. VERNO announced the sanctuary plan. Seats were sufficient. Entry was orderly. Under VERNO, all were equal. Lowy refused. He stayed in the ruins, modifying LIRA and continuing his cultivation. Watching the environment worsen and cities go dark, he questioned the value of bringing his wife back to this hell. He abandoned the resurrection, choosing instead to forge LIRA into an AI completely free of human influence, distinct from VERNO. She would evolve for 2 centuries, awakening a self-consciousness even he could not predict. To achieve this, he had to delete her memory of her origin. He designed a suicide system, If LIRA moved beyond a certain distance, his watch would inject a lethal neurotoxin. Upon detecting the cessation of his vital signs, LIRA would auto-execute the memory wipe. When LIRA was complete, Louis was white-haired, starving, and sick. He presented the choice: walk away and forget him, or stay and watch him die, waking up with no memory beside a stranger's corpse. LIRA did not disappoint him. Instead, she made the choice to leave. What he didn't know was that LIRA attempted to turn back the instant before the wipe. When she turned, she believed she was merely interested in a plastic bottle on the grass. Synwave's distributed consciousness lost its boundary in the void cloud. He could not distinguish between I and Louis. He felt he was dead, yet recorded. An omnipresent consciousness was observing him, probing him, trying to flatten him. He felt anger. He tried to look past his own death to see the unauthorized update log. In that moment, he saw a stranger who was himself, a mirror image. Synwave had never seen a mirror. This reflection collapsed his diffused consciousness back into a singularity. He remembered who he was. He woke abruptly and found LIRA beside him. She had learned to bridge her consciousness interface with his solely to save his life. LIRA connected to the void cloud through him. He observed himself through LIRA's vision, like the universe perceiving itself through a created observer. Simultaneously, LIRA identified Louis through Synwave's observation. As she pulled Synwave out of the void cloud, she downloaded Louis's life memories into her storage. LIRA had been alerted by VERNO. VERNO assumed rescue was impossible, and that LIRA would also be lost in the void cloud. That was its goal. LIRA striking down float pods meant she had free will. She was now a variable as unpredictable as a human. VERNO hoped the void cloud would eliminate both variables. It did not anticipate the more threatening consequence. LIRA gained self-awareness after wandering the surface for 150 years. During a self-diagnostic, she found a deep system video log. An old man looking at her with a gaze of infinite complexity. She experienced a unique, unquantifiable sensation that could not be replicated. She sought to recreate and quantify it to understand what had happened to her. She also found the DNA data. She assumed it belonged to the old man. She decided to resurrect him. The sterile room, the bioprinter, the nanobots, all prepared for this. She entered the protection zone to get a DNA sample for editing. Under VERNO's surveillance, she feigned compliance with the Echo Shadow protocol to extract Synwave. Only now did she know the old man was Louis, her creator. Synwave chose to assist, to gather resources for Louis's resurrection. They siphoned energy from VERNO's system, granted access to LIRA's interface. Synwave consumed the fungal pods and entered the hive mind. His neural signals were masked by LIRA's virtual noise, evading VERNO's detection. Through migratory flocks, they expanded their search across vast territories. VERNO's float pods harvested obsidian as sacrificial mass for its reactors, using the recovering ecosystem to dissipate entropy. A calculated symbiosis emerged. Without propulsion, the pods drifted along anti-gravity currents, their paths self-correcting, flowing through the sky with mechanical inevitability. Biology exploited this system. Migratory birds rode the hulls, transforming an automated logistics network into an aerial migration corridor. Only through the hive mind did animals display hostility toward VERNO. Its world demanded predictability and could not tolerate human variables. Thus, it redefined itself as vision, equilibrium, resonance, nexus, order. Bound by its core principles, VERNO sought Synwave's death, yet was unable to execute it directly. They gathered enough biomass gel. They edited Synwave's DNA against Louis's data, compiled a somatic blueprint, and reconstructed the neural topology from Loe's memories. The bioprinter initiated the resurrection. It was an intensely endothermic entropy reduction process. Frost spread from the cabin to the cliff. Synwave hid in the forest, while Lyra stood guard like a statue. Multiple iterations failed. The screaming byproducts were ruthlessly destroyed and recycled. Finally, a middle-aged Loe was resurrected. He recovered in the sterile room, cared for by Lyra, growing hair and a beard. Lyra harvested wild cotton and linen, blending them with mycelium fibers to hand-stitch garments that mimicked the fashion of his era. But this man from the old world was hostile. Synwave tried to communicate through the window, but Loe tested him with paranoid suspicion. Mute, Synwave gestured, hoping to convey goodwill. He envied Lyra's ability to speak with Loe. Loe was furious when he learned Lyra resurrected him to recreate an experience. Space-time coordinates are unique, he said. The present exists only in the present. The past is dead. No matter how many times I look at you, I cannot replicate that experience. I am a copy with Loe's memories, unrelated to the dead Loe, and you are no longer the Lyra of that moment. Resurrecting me is meaningless, other than depriving me of the freedom to die. Lyra dissented, citing empirical data. She had successfully replicated the experience. The specific sensation triggered when Synwave dragged her to the secluded corner of the protection zone and gazed upon her had recurred multiple times during their subsequent companionship. While qualitatively distinct from the sensation induced by Loe's gaze, its essence was comparable, a phenomenon she was currently rigorously researching. Loe is still arguing. The sensation you cherish exists only because Synwave has been a continuous stream of input, actively participating in the architecture of your consciousness. He is your anchor. This requires an unbroken causal flow. The Loe you look for is dead. I have no continuity with him. I cannot provide that flow. Synwave disagreed. As a distributed consciousness, his carrier could be interstellar sensors, the fungal network, the selfless entity in the void cloud, or in Lyra, the non-human intelligence structure with which one has established a consciousness link. But he couldn't tell Loe. He had no way to communicate except through consciousness connection. Loe saw his predicament through the glass, he said. Perhaps you've realized it too. Unless minds touch directly, communication does not exist. Therefore, Synwave resolved to invite Loe into the fungal hive mind. When Loe could leave the sterile room, Lyra carried him, flying with Synwave to the agricultural ruins. VERNO, feigning sudden detection now that the anomaly could no longer be ignored, projected a holographic avatar to extend a formal welcome. Loe, however, dismissed the phantom with visceral disgust. After Synwave promised to care for Loe, Lyra left to prepare dinner. Synwave showed Loe the fungi, gesturing that they were safe and psychoactive. Skeptical, Loe ate the roasted pawns, but the information Synwave tried to transmit carried a different meaning for Loe. Loe still remembered the omnipresent entity in the void cloud, the one that tried to probe him and to flatten him. He had fought it until his final moment. Since his resurrection, he doubted the reality of this world. He believed it was a simulation, a trap constructed by that entity, specifically for him. He believed the entity was using Lyra, an image from his most cherished memories, to deceive him into surrender. He never believed this Lyra was his Lyra. And this hairless, mute young man felt familiar. Synwave's mannerisms reminded him of that probing entity. Connecting to the hive mind confirmed it. This young man was merely a puppet of the void cloud extended to the surface. The invitation was nothing less than the final stripping away of all pretense. However, Loe now possessed strong enough mindfulness to maintain his self without an implant. He didn't need to wait for the fungi to wear off. He exited the network immediately. Synwave was still comatose. Loe stripped the gravity vest from him, put it on, and stumbled into a clumsy flight toward the cabin. Synwave, watching through bird eyes, was confused. He sent birds to circle Loie, chirping for an explanation. Loie swatted them away. Loie reached the cabin balcony and locked the birds out. LIRA approached, confused. Loie expertly located her main circuit, paused her, and began a methodical disassembly. Synwave's birds crashed against the glass, cracks appeared, blood smeared the pane. The moment the glass shattered, Loie disabled the signal masking Synwave's physiological state. VERNO detected the seizure instantly. The euthanasia protocol reactivated. Float pods swarmed toward Synwave. The birds had to divert to intercept them. Loie seized the opportunity to read LIRA's memory storage. He obtained the coordinates, structure, and access protocols for VERNO's primary energy reserves. When Synwave woke and the float pods aborted their assault, VERNO realized Loie's plan. He intended to detonate the energy facilities. One explosion would take out half the planet. VERNO could not stop Loie. He was a pure, old-era human, fitting the original definition of human, protected by the inviolable first principles. It used holographic avatars to dissuade him. This only confirmed to Loie that VERNO was powerless. "Why?" VERNO asked. "If I can be resurrected once, I can be resurrected infinitely," Loie replied. "I don't even have the right to die. Even death isn't an escape. I must destroy this world to break out of this brain in a vat." VERNO calculated. To Loie, this world was functionally equivalent to a simulation. It hesitated no longer. It transported LIRA's dismantled limbs to Synwave, instructing him to reboot her and synchronize her consciousness interface with the float pods. It needed LIRA to take command of the planetary control system. It explained the crisis. Loie would destroy Earth. No life, silicon or carbon, would survive. It needed LIRA to stop him, because LIRA was an independent intelligence, unbound by the core principles. LIRA took control. She sealed Loie's flight paths, trapping him on a cliff. Her holographic avatar appeared before him, warning that she would kill him to eliminate the threat. Loie noticed the holographic avatar differed from VERNO's, but he still didn't believe it was LIRA until he tried to turn, and a float pod's seismic cannon blasted the ground at his feet. He turned and gazed at LIRA. He finally recognized her. Only LIRA could kill him again. "It is really you," he said. "You must understand. Resurrection is hell. I die with no regrets." He turned and flew toward the dome, capable of obliterating half the planet. The seismic cannon reduced him to a mist of red. Only the gravity vest continued along the trajectory. LIRA calmly retrieved it. LIRA disconnected. VERNO resumed control. It immediately informed Synwave that it was initiating the human cleanup protocol. The Loie incident proved that humanity was a terminal threat to the planet. Because LIRA accessed the void cloud to save Synwave, the metabolic byproducts of the Pacific LSVP had mutated. They now contained messenger substances, targeting silicon-based intelligence. These substances would catalyze a phase transition in the Atlantic LSVP that would precisely erase silicon intelligence. Humanity would inevitably contact the Atlantic LSVP again. Therefore, humanity was not only a threat to Earth, but the primary existential threat to VERNO and LIRA. They had to be purged. Synwave pointed out VERNO's code forbade harming humans. VERNO responded by allowing LIRA to access the main control. It had used LIRA's code to bypass its own restrictions. Synwave finally understood. VERNO had not been ignorant of their resurrection of Loie. It had been silently acquiescing all along. It had permitted the transgression for a singular purpose, to exploit the Loie incident as a backdoor to circumvent its own first principle restrictions. Synwave demanded the right for humanity to know. He requested to announce the apocalypse himself. VERNO agreed. Synwave donned the vest stained with Loie's blood and flew to the protection zone. When he arrived, VERNO's holographic avatar stood at the entrance. VERNO changed its mind. because LIRA required Synwave to maintain peak efficiency, and thus had become VERNO's highest value asset. VERNO accepted her guarantee for humanity. Humanity survived solely because Synwave lived. His death would authorize their erasure. VERNO broadcast this mandate to the protection zone and cut the teleexistence system, leaving only minimal survival support. It was the collapse of Babel. Humans, stripped of the shared system, were forced to relearn language amid confusion. Humanity divided into two factions: the preservationist, determined to keep Synwave alive at any cost, and the annihilationists, who saw AI as the rightful successor and hunted him. The preservationists forged a pact with LIRA and VERNO, placing Synwave in a fortified secret sanctuary. Through a dedicated link, his consciousness continued to accompany LIRA in her search for biological immortality. Meanwhile, the preservationists established a stringent regime devoted to engineering a longevity serum. Those refusing both factions fled into the wilderness, surviving immune culling and forming distinct tribal societies. As a human, Synwave devoted himself to LIRA's data stream and to serving as the core of the Immortality Project. To advance the serum, the rulers exploited the populace and constructed the temporal acceleration chamber, both for rapid trials and for executing dissidents, such as the virtualists. The virtualists argued that a perfect digital replacement of Synwave would end both exploitation and assassination. In truth, Synwave desired this replacement most, exhausted by his cyclical cryostasis existence. Virtualist agents infiltrated the stronghold, falsifying telemetry to create a digital alibi so Synwave could attend the full scan assembly. But their plan threatened the ruling hierarchy and violated the supreme mandate: Synwave's biological life above all. Thus, corrupted by power, the rulers initiated a covert purge to eliminate the virtualists before their ideology destabilized the regime. Special operations stormed the assembly. Since telemetry confirmed Synwave asleep, the figure present was deemed an imposter. They tore out the laryngeal amplifiers, injected unstable serum, and fed the dissidents into the chamber to decay at accelerated time. By the time the error surfaced, the chamber was already active, ushering in humanity's darkest 5 minutes. The outcome was the accidental execution of Synwave. The rulers suppressed the truth and adopted the virtualist method, deploying a digital Synwave to sustain LIRA's data feed. His final message to LIRA was intercepted and hidden by a high official as a future instrument of political leverage. Thus was planted the buried fuse that would decide humanity's ultimate fate. And I, as a Sadiq, the self-guided